So I just might have made my biggest mistake ever in running my farm. And I want to show you guys what went wrong and how I'm going to attempt to solve this problem. So yes, I have broken my farm's water hydrant and I now have to run water lines from my house out to my farm so that I can ensure that my farm animals have fresh water. This is a massive problem and there's no way I can actually convey to you guys how big of an issue this is gonna be, as well as how stupid it was and the fact that it's entirely all my fault. Good morning, Abby dog. Good morning, Toby dog. How's it going, guys? Aw, look at these two fluff balls. Hi. Hi, buddy. How's it going? So you see, ordinarily, this would be the water hydrant that I get all the water for my animals from. But the other morning, I came out here to do my morning chores, and I flipped the switch, and I heard a little pin inside the hydrant break. Now, this pin that broke was not a shocker to me. As you guys might recall from a few months back when I replaced the head of this water hydrant, I knew I had some problems, but because we were in winter, I didn't want to replace the hydrant entirely because the ground was frozen, the water was gonna freeze easily, and it was just gonna be a whole mess. And so I made some adaptations a couple of months ago when I replaced the hydrant head, and I hoped for the best and really worried for the worst on a regular basis. But for most of the winter, that repair held okay. But the other morning, I got out here to pour the water for the animals, and I had that problem where it actually broke. So I made the decision to try to open up the hydrant again and repair it. But while I was trying to unscrew the hydrant, I made a massive mistake. You see, because rather than unscrew the hydrant head, I accidentally unscrewed the hydrant standpipe, which is the pipe that runs underground, and that connection underground is what brings the water up to the hydrant head and lets me open and close it. And with that standpipe disconnected, I have effectively broken the hydrant. And the only way to fix it would be to dig up this hydrant and reattach this hydrant to the line. So until I do that, I have quite literally hosed myself, and all of the water for my farm animals is going to need to travel from the house along this hose. And yeah, it all just kind of sucks. And I feel very stupid. Now, some of you might remember that I do have a second water hydrant here inside the barn, but I had to shut this hydrant off too because the barn water hydrant and the barnyard water hydrant are all hooked onto the same water line. And because they're on that same water line, I had to turn the shutoff valve off so that the water flowing up to this disconnected standpipe that I have right here won't go all over the place and start to make this area flood, which I noticed was happening the other day. Like I said, I feel like I might have just made my biggest farming mistake ever. And I don't feel good about it one bit. But I will say I feel very good about these two fluff balls, and I love seeing them in the morning. And while I'm totally ready to beat myself up over this mistake, I know Ginny Barncat forgives me, so that makes me feel a little bit better. Now, running this hose from the house is really only a temporary solution. And you guys might be wondering, well, what's gonna be my permanent solution to solving this problem? And I'm happy to report that I called in a little help from a friend.
My buddy Alfred, he lives on down the road. He's a wizard with machines, a genius in blue jeans. Let's stop and say hello. My buddy Alfred, Vermont's best so-and-so. Bricklaying engineer, surgeon, driving heavy gear. Ain't nothing he don't know.
So I'm one of those people who likes to do a lot of extra work while the patient is open and on the operating table. And since we have to dig up this trench over here, figured it'd probably be a good time to actually put in a second water hydrant here. You know, for the last couple of years, I've run hoses over to here so that I can get water to all my birds. But what I'd love to do is pretty much right where this thing is, put some sort of water hydrant. So while he's digging the trench up to fix the thing that I broke, what we're also gonna do is end up putting in a second line of water that's gonna pretty much run through here and go all the way down over to there. The ground around here is pretty shallow. Like, for example, these boulders that are behind Toby Dog, that's Mother Earth right there. And so because that rock is relatively close to the surface of the ground, we're still trying to figure out how deep we can dig this. Ideally, that line would be running at least 5 feet deep, even deeper if we can, because that'll prevent it from freezing in the winter. But I also might recognize I might have to make some trade-offs and sacrifices so that this is a hydrant that works, say, when the temperature is negative 15 degrees, but maybe not when it's negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But pretty much right through here is where it's gonna go. I already had plans to move and remove this old weird chicken house, and I'm gonna be doing something else over here anyway, but that's a topic for a future video. In order to keep the dogs safe during this exercise, I'm gonna be keeping Toby Dog over here on the bird side of the bird yard. But because I still get a little bit nervous with Abby Dog and how she behaves with birds when I'm not watching, Abby, no, leave her alone. I'm gonna be keeping her inside the kennel for the morning, but she does seem pretty darn happy because I also gave her a bone to gnaw on, which is basically her favorite thing. But for the safety of both dogs, I genuinely don't want them out and wandering around. While we've got the excavator going, it just creates danger for everybody. Let's see if Alfred's gonna fit. Oh, wow, look at that precision excavation work right there. That is incredible. He has about 2 inches on either side. That's quite impressive. Here we have a sleepy Abby Dog. How's it going, girl? Just coming in to visit and say hi. How are you doing? You got water, you got no more food because you ate it, but you still have your bone. I'm sorry. I just don't want you underfoot and getting in the way with the excavator. You could get hurt, so unfortunately you got to spend the morning living in here. But you do have weird chickens as your neighbors. You know, when people ask me about the type of agriculture that our farm is most best suited for, I don't feel like I'm exaggerating when I say we're best suited to be a rock farm, because there is just so much rock buried underneath here. Alfred is going through and splitting boulders and cracking them up and making it so that we can actually run the line all the way through. Which, for the folks in the comments who might be wondering, why am I not using my tractor? Or why am I not doing it myself? Why am I not hand digging? It's because that I was certain that we had probably 100 feet of that would have prevented me from doing it any other way than getting my good friend who has an excavator and is skilled at cracking apart stone and breaking apart stone. And that's really what was a big part of the effort and part of this job. These rocks are gonna eventually get used for some other construction projects on the farm. And it's kind of cool to me to see it like that, because if I look in the olden days on our farm and you think about all the old New England stone walls that are out here, it's pretty much the same thing the old time farmers used to do, but just on a bigger, stronger scale. Last year I actually made a whole video talking about the old New England rock walls, and so if you're curious about it, you should check it out right there. So now the tubing that I'm gonna need to use is this black high density polyethylene black tubing that I use for most of the water around our farm. Because this is gonna have relatively high amounts of water pressure, I sprung and bought the more expensive stuff, so I think this stuff is actually 160 PSI. When I'm putting in the other water lines around the farm, I'm usually using I think it's like 120 PSI, just because I just don't have that much water pressure going through, and so I can save a few bucks on those long runs. Now, while I'm waiting for Alfred to finish the digging, I've actually gone through and already attached the hydrant, which is this piece that you see right here, and I've attached it down to the tubing. This tubing's gonna run and connect somewhere down around here once we open up the line and start to install this new one as well. I've actually gotten pretty good at connecting these water lines. I did a lot of it last year. I've got a lot more that I'm gonna do this year. And one of the goals I have for the farm is to really put water line connection points scattered all over the farm, because I find that it saves me a lot of labor and time and cost in the long run. And it just makes it so much easier for one person to run an entire farm when I don't have to constantly keep carrying long hoses, and I can just find little points to jack in when I need to water my animals. And the practice of making those connections has gotten me really quick, where, I don't know, at this point, I can put in a new connection in about 5 minutes, and so it's really not that big of a hassle to install them. All right, so we now have this backfilled into here, and so this hydrant is all set. Alfred's gone through and filled in the material back here, and so that piping that you see there, that black piping, is what will ultimately connect to the water line, and it'll bring the water out here, and it kind of runs and zigzags its way through. Would you guys look at how much rock Alfred was able to pull out of the ground? I mean, whew, that is not insignificant at all. I feel like one day after all of these farm projects, I'm gonna wanna build like a stone cabin or something out of all that material. I tried to get this down there as deep as I could, just as some additional stability for the pipe, but it's so rocky down there, there's some extra we had to cut off. So you can see, this was the pipe that I unscrewed that I shouldn't have unscrewed. And here's where it connected down below. And so once I unscrewed it, there was no way of getting it back out. Therein lies my problem. So this really was the only way to solve this problem. I guess we got the added bonus. Now we got a hydrant over there. We're celebrating, right? Right. Of course, I keep digging into here, like the dirt keeps piling back down. Ready for the moment of truth? Let's say that one works. It's a good healthy flow right there. Woo! Forgot to take that cap off. That's what you like to say.
Beautiful. Yeah, that was
the pressure impressive. That was like a champagne toast right there. Wow.
The next morning.
Good morning, dogs. How's it going? How are my large white farm dogs doing, huh? Hi, Abby dog. Hey, Tobes. How's it going, buddy? I know, guys, our farm is feeling and looking rather different right now. Let's pour some fresh water for the dogs, huh? Hopefully this works. Hey, would you look at that? That's correct. We are fully set and everything is working here on the farm. Isn't it so exciting, Abby Dog? I still have some work to do, but let me explain what's going on. So as you can see, there's still some cleanup that needs to be done, and Alfred's gonna be back later this morning to smooth some of this stuff out and move my new large rock collection over to my large rock pile over down yonder there. But we were able to get both hydrants installed and they're both working. And quite honestly, I couldn't be any happier than I am right now. Of course, I am gonna have to figure out a new system for how I water my birds in the morning, but I'm pretty certain that this is all gonna be much, much easier. Whoa. But yes, there are a few kinks I gotta work out. Like I said, just a few kinks. But would you look at all those happy ducks? What do you think, Baby B? What's your review of the new watering system? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Baby B likes it too. Aw, you're such a sweetheart. Nibbling on my finger. Now, I gotta confess, the past few days, I felt kind of like a big failure. In that when I actually broke my hydrant, I felt like such a moron. It was such a stupid mistake. And I genuinely felt like I had ruined my farm. You guys are such vultures. And I don't know about you guys, but I often make that mistake where when I make a mistake, I can feel like I've ruined everything and it's all horrible and I should just give up now and call it a day and do something else. But the reality is there's always going to be a solution to the problem that you create. And sometimes that solution to the problem is going to make things even better than they were before you even created the problem, which I very much feel like is what I have on my hands here today. And I'm going to remember this incident as an example of that when I'm dealing with this sort of problem in the future. Because generally speaking, there's always a way to fix a problem. So right here, you can actually very clearly see the thing I screwed up. So while I was trying to fix my hydrant, I accidentally unscrewed this part of the hydrant. And so that's what got disconnected. And once that's disconnected, there's no reconnecting it. Because here was the other end of that hydrant, the part that actually got disconnected. So Alfred, do you have a time for a quick interview?
Sure.
So in terms of when I first was like, oh, so I think I screwed something up, what was your first thought in your mind?
You really want my
Yeah, I'm really actually curious.
Of course you screwed something up, Morgan.
In order to screw that up and not know what I was doing, I had to know just a little bit. So it's like the Dunning-Kruger curve. Like, I feel like I'm getting higher and higher on that curve at this point. So what remains to be done?
I gotta get that pile of boulders out of here, and then I'll take whatever remaining soil is around here and finish filling in this trench. Every stone I find that I think will be a good wall stone, I set off to the side, and I've been creating a little, well, it's actually becoming a pretty substantial pile over there of a pretty decent wall stone. So I'm pretty excited about building it'll be a freestanding wall on the side of your patio there.
Folks are looking for you. Where could they find you?
Vermont Heritage Granite Company. Actually, I have quite a few projects, lined up for the year here that I'm looking to document, and more work in the quarry.